Hey everybody, it's Daniel here. Today we're going to talk about test-driven development. So maybe you've heard of test-driven development, but you have no idea what it is, why you'd want to use it, or how it can help you build better apps. This is the video for you. So for the first couple of minutes, we're just going to build a basic registration form, and then we'll go use Espresso tests, and we will figure out how we can test the app in seconds. So one of the benefits from test-driven development is that you can kind of know within 5 seconds whether your app is functioning or not. And I mean like everything from the registration screen to login to the main to tabs. Like you can check hundreds of screens. Well, it'll take a little bit of time, but it's much faster to use tests like Espresso or unit tests to make your code, just to check it out. Anyways, so instead of trying to tell what test instead of trying to say what test-driven development is, I'm going to try to show you. So just for a couple of minutes here, let's build a simple form. So we'll do text view, wrap. And again, this is just to get something on the screen. If you want to skip a couple of minutes in, you can do that where I finish the form. But if you want to see me create it, here it is. Oh, and I have a new Android Studio project open up. I'm in content main. I'm not in design mode, I'm in text mode because that's what I usually use. Let's give it an ID. Actually, we'll do text, registration. This is just a registration form. We'll do text size, we'll do 24 SB. We'll give it some padding. We'll do 16 dp. So there we go. We want the text color to black. And because we're using constraint layout, we're going to have to do left, parent, and top, parent. There we go. So there's our header. And so let's do a couple more fields. So say you're going to register for this app. Let's do edit text. Do wrap. We'll give this an ID of first name. Give this an ID of title, because that's kind of the title of our page. And again, this is just to get something on the screen. If you give me a couple more minutes, we'll finish this out. Then we can actually use test-driven development. So title invalid ID. What is that about? Let's do this. ID. There we go. Okay, so this one, let's do top to bottom of title. There it is. Then we'll do left parent, right parent. Got to give it a width of 0 dp. This is all just constraint layout stuff. Again, just trying to get something on the screen. So let's go. So I already have an emulator opened up, I think, but let's add one more thing. Let's add a last name also. So let's do this. I'm just going to copy this. Sorry, instead of you watching me type this out, I'm going to copy this. So let's see. Let's see if I can duplicate it. What did I do? Messed that up. Let's duplicate that. Get rid of some of the spacing here. This is going to be last name. And again, everything looks good. Oh, what we need to do here, we need to give this top to bottom of first name. So let's go ahead and give this hints. Let's do hint. We'll do first name. And then here we'll do hint last name. So there we go. So let's go ahead and run this. So I have an emulator open up, so I'm going to go ahead and run it. Then I'm going to go to the emulator, and this should open up, and this will be a nice registration form where people can fill out their first name and last name. And maybe a lot of times you have more than that. You have, you type out Dan, Malone, M, or whatever. So this is sort of working. So you can enter stuff in there. So say what you want to do is you want to add, well, let's just go ahead and get into the testing part now. So I have a browser window open up. And to do this, go ahead and Google Android Espresso setup, and hopefully you didn't get bored by my typing all of this stuff out. So let's go ahead and get started with testing. So let's go ahead and do this. Just Google Android Espresso testing, and there's some stuff we need to add to our build.gradle files. We need to make sure it has all of this here. So let's go back to Android Studio, go to Gradle scripts and Gradle, and you don't have to follow along, you can just watch. So let's go ahead and let's paste that down there. That outline is actually already in there. Let's go ahead and reformat it and go ahead and sync now. That'll pull all that stuff in, then we'll be done with it. Okay, cool. So now, what is test? What is a test? What's a unit test? What's Espresso test or whatever. So let's go ahead and just create a test really quick. That's probably the easiest way for people to learn, instead of just trying to explain it, trying to just show you how it works. So go into Java file. So first of all, I have project open up, and I'm inside of Android, and this could all be closed. Open up app, Java, and there are 3 folders. That's where your that's where your main code goes. So you see main activity there, that's where it goes. This is the default file that gets created for you when you create an Android Studio project. So we don't need that. Those are for unit tests, and what we want is the folder with Android test. So open that up, and then it said, so then there's already a file in here called example instrument, this test right here. So go ahead and open that up. And what we can do is we can click on Android test, right click, and go to run tests, the first option there. And this should run all of the tests, and it's running, and green. So all the tests are working. So what is test-driven development, and what is a test? How can it help you? This is the part where we get into tests. So let's do something really quick. Just to show you kind of what it is let's do this. So let's do, we'll create a new function, and again, we're inside of this file right here, inside of Android test. So let's go ahead and create a new method. This is something we can run however often we want to make sure the app is functional. So fun, we'll do user can enter first name. So very basic. So what we want to say is, hey, on view with ID, r.id.first name, we want to perform type, I think it's type text, I want to type Daniel. Okay, so that's giving us some error there, and it's important to note that we added stuff to the build.gradle file there. So that's all good. So let's do, I'm going to put my mouse over type text and hit option enter on a Mac. I think it's option or alt enter on a Windows, I think. So here we go. So this is our first test. So user can enter first name. It's just like a function. It's just the method. That's basically all it is. Then we have some special syntax. So it says, hey, on this screen with the ID of first name. And if we go back to here, we gave it an ID of first name. So ID equals first name. So what we're going to do is, hey, we want to type something there. We want to type the text Daniel. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and save it. I'm going to go back over to here and see where it says Android test. I'm going to right click on it and go to run tests. Then I'm going to open up my emulator again, and this should open up the app. So wait a second or a minute if your computer's a little bit slower. And oh, that's right, because it's not actually going to. Wait, did it run the? Oh, I forgot to do something. So we need to annotate it. So sorry about that. So let's do this. Let's do test, and that lets it know that this is a test function. Okay, so we have the test there. So let's go ahead and right click on the Android test and go back to run tests there. So the first option there, or I can use the keyboard shortcut. Then I'm going to go back to the emulator and open the emulator up, and I think we should see this. So user can enter first name. So what's going on? So what we can see right here is our first test up here that was provided by Android Studio for free when you just created your project. That passed. So see, that one is green. What did not pass was user can enter first name. So there is a problem with the user entering their first name. And actually it's not exactly that. What's going on here is if you just click on, so first click on user app context, which is that test right there. That passed. It's green. You see it? But the red one didn't. So we got a runtime exception, no activities found, blah blah blah. There's a bunch of other random text. So what's going on here? Well, for every test, we need to tell it kind of what activity we want it to test. So let's go back up here and let's go ahead and do this. We need to set up an activity test rule. So let's do this. Let's do val. We'll call this rule. Then this will equal activity test rule, and again that's something we added in. So then it wants the name of our activity. So the name of the activity is main activity. So we'll call it that. We'll do main activity, and then that'll equal activity test rule, and then we pass in the class again. So main activity class.java, and this should work. Actually, we need to add it. I think we need to add rule and we need to also do JVM field, I think we need to do that. Could be wrong. Okay, so this is all saved, and this is basically going to say, hey, so whenever we come down here to try to type, or whenever we get the ID of first name, and whenever we want to type the text Daniel, then it'll pull it from main activity. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to go back to Android test. I'm going to right click, go to run, and I think this might work, but we'll find out. So let's see, it opens up, and boom, it opens up Daniel really quick, and the tests pass. So did you see that really quick? It went really fast, but that's how it's supposed to be. So let's come back here to our tests. So we have a number of tests that pass. First, user can enter first name, that passed, and also the use app context passed. So what's going on here? Basically, so let's just run it one more time. So right click on it, go back to run, go to the emulator, and it's going to say, hey, it's going to run through first user app context, and it's going to open up very fast, and it'll find the view with the ID of first name, then it will type Daniel there. So I'm just running it one more time just because it happens really quickly, just to show you. But if you go to it, we can actually watch it fill out Daniel really quick. See Daniel. It typed out Daniel, and then it closed. So I'll do it. It's hard to see because it types it so fast, but that's kind of what test-driven development is all about. Well, hopefully it's a lot more complex than this, but this is the basics. So say you want to add a new feature. So let's do something else. Let's create one more test. Let's do this. Let's do test there, create a new function. User can enter. Here's another test. So let's do this first on view. So what view do we want with an ID of, and then remember, if you go back to our content main, we entered last name. So if we go back to here, we can do r.id. Let's do r.id.last name dot perform type text, and then we'll type Malone. Okay, so here we go. So we just created another test. And by the way, you can have tons of these tests. You can have files with like tons and tons of tests. You can scroll up and down all these tests. You can have hundreds of tests. Probably don't want to do thousands, but it's definitely possible, I think. I wouldn't recommend that many. But for this can really help out. So we can also, so far we've just kind of, all we're doing is typing text, but we can like kind of check to make sure, oh, we really did enter Daniel or Malone or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. So let's go back to Android test, right click, go to run, and then let's wait a second for this to open up. It types in Malone, that did that. Daniel, going in a different order here, but I don't think that matters. I'm not actually 100% positive why it's doing it in that order. Anyway, okay, let's do one more thing. Okay, so I mean, let's try to think of what else we can do. Like, I just want you to get the point that you can have lots of tests here, and these tests run in a matter of, like a second or two. So if we go back to run, wait for it to come up, and Malone, Daniel. So that you can know in about 3 or 4 seconds whether this works or not. Instead of having to try to make a change, so you go to main activity, and then you're like, oh, let's go ahead and run it. Let's just run app really quick. Go back to the emulator, and this, I'm not running it with tests, or I'm not using Espresso tests for this, but we could go here and type out Daniel, Malone. We could hit a button. So say we want to put a button there. So let's go back to here. Let's do this. Let's do it a different way. I'm going to come back to here. We're going to do a new test. So let's do this. Test. Fun. When user enters first and last name, check to confirm. So this is kind of self-explanatory. So whenever a user enters their first and last name, let's display a little message for them that says, hey, welcome Daniel Malone. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is kind of how we do test-driven development. We'd write the test first. So what do we want to happen? Let's do this. On view, and we're kind of duplicating our work here, but hopefully you won't mind. So with ID, let's do it. Let's do r.id.firstName. Again, we've just done this at the top. Let's perform. Let's do something else. Let's do type text. We'll type in Jake, just Jake. Let's capitalize that. So we have Jake there. Okay, cool. Now let's do one more. Let's do on view with ID, r.id.lastName, perform, type text, and this will be Smith. So we'll do Jake Smith. Okay, now what do we want to do? Let's do this. On view with ID, r.id.message, and then we want to check something. So check that the text message that we get back that says, hey, welcome. So it's going to say, hey, welcome, Jake Smith, welcome back, or welcome, Jake Smith, or whatever. So you want to check that it matches, I think matches, check that it matches with texts, welcome, Jake Smith. So that's what should happen. And why is this giving an error? I'm going to go ahead and import that. Okay, so here we are. So we have this. Let's go ahead and run it. So we have our test. First, we have that test was already there for us, so we didn't really do that. This was our testing first name, which really doesn't do anything. This is the last name, which doesn't really do anything. It just types out a name. But this test down here, what it does is it says, hey, first we're going to enter something for a first name, then last name, and then we're going to check to make sure that we have a message that says, hey, welcome, Jake Smith. So if you go back to the emulator, you type out Daniel and Malone, and then as soon as you hit the button, which we're about to put there, there'll be a little message that says, hey, welcome, Jake, or welcome, Daniel Malone, or welcome, Jake Smith, or whatever. It's going to say, welcome, Jake Smith. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go ahead and save this, and I'm going to go ahead and go back here, click on Android Test. Again, not test, but Android Test. Right-click, and let's go ahead and run that. And this should give us an error. It should die pretty quickly. Okay, so one of our tests didn't pass. So see the user first name, that was good. There's green there, that was good. User last name was good. User first name was good. And use app context, which is up here, that was all good. What wasn't good was this method right here. So what's going on? If we click on this, we can see, hey, no views matching. This will kind of tell us why it did not pass. So this we can say, those passed, so we don't really need to get any information about those. But the bottom one here, that didn't pass. So it's giving us an error. No views with hierarchy found. It's basically saying, hey, we didn't find an ID with message. So let's fix that right now. Let's go back to main activity. Yeah, let's go back. Well, let's do something else. I just realized I forgot to do something. Let's do it this way. Let's do one more thing. On view with ID. We'll call this r.id.button.perform, I think click. Okay, cool. So I forgot to add that. So first we're going to enter a first name, enter a last name, hit a button, then make sure we see a message. Okay, let's go back to content main. Let's add the button really quick. Let's do this. Let's do button, wrap, ID of button. That's what we called it. Let's do left, parent, and top to bottom of last name. Okay, so here it is. Oh, one more thing. Text, we'll call the text submits. There we go. So if I were to just go ahead and run this regularly, so I'll get rid of that, I'll go to app. Oops, not what I wanted. How do I kill that? Sorry. Hit the wrong thing. Okay, so if we hit that button there, then we go back to here, we should see first name, last name, and then a button. So let's see, first name, last name, and a button. And right now it doesn't do anything. So let's go ahead, so we added that there. Let's go back to here. There we are. Let's run our test again. So I'm going to right click on Android tests and choose run. Go back to the emulator really quick, and let's see if our app's working or not, or if there's still more work to be done. So first name, or it's running through our tests now. You can see down there, it's entering that stuff in. So yeah, our tests were pretty much green except for this one right here. So why didn't this one right here pass? Again, green, 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 red. This is the bad test. So no views, it's message. Okay, so let's go back to content main. We need to add the message. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do text view, wrap, left parent, and we'll do top bottom of button. Okay, cool. So we got that set up now, and tools text equals message here. So using, instead of Android text, it's tools text, and that will only show up when you're in Android Studio. So it's not really going to be there. So, but that's our message, and that's really important. And we needed to give it an ID of message. So we called it message. Because see, if we go back to here, I don't have it up anymore. Let's go ahead and run this. So again, right click on Android test and go to run test. Go back to the emulator, and we should see our tests go up really quickly. And this has kind of been like a really quick intro to test-driven development and why tests are valuable. So we can see, hey, it still didn't pass. What's going on? So it says, hey, we're looking for the text Jake Smith, but that's not what we're seeing. And we got all this stuff down here. It kind of gives you some debugging stuff. Text is somewhere, I forget where. I think there's text somewhere. Not that yeah, I don't want to find it now. Anyway, but there's text on the text view. So what's going on? So we're getting this error, again, on this red arrow right here. That's what's wrong. So it's with text hello. It's supposed to find hello Jake Smith, but it doesn't match the selected view. I think that's the problem. So yeah, first name, last name. So message should equal. So yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. So when we hit the button, let's go back to here. So when I hit, let's close that. So when I hit the button right there, let's update the message. Okay, so let's go back to the first folder here, and let's open up main activity, and we can just get rid of a lot of that stuff because we don't need it. So let's do this. Let's do button.set on click listener. And then when we do that, let's do message.text equals, and then we'll do, what do we want it to be? Let's go back to our test really quick. We want it to be in this format right there. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to just paste it in there. And actually, this should work. Notice we're hard coding Jake Smith, but I think this should work. So let's just try it. The good thing about tests is you can run them however often you want to run them. You can run them every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, every hour, whenever you write a lot of code, just to make sure you didn't break anything. Let's go ahead and run the test and see what happens. I think this might pass, but if not, we can dig into it and see. And it passed. So that's really cool. We see, user can enter last name, can enter first name. And when user enters their first and last name, confirm that the message is correct. But if we come back to here, you'll notice we're actually hard coding the name there. So if let's go back to a regular. Let's go back to app, and I'm going to go ahead and run that. And you'll notice that if we do something, let's do this. So if you type in Mel Malone and hit submit, it still says hello Jake. It says welcome Jake Smith. That's because we hard coded it. So let's get rid of that. Let's do $firstname.text, and let's do last name. .text. Oh, actually, before we do that, I'm going to show you something. So forget that right there. So say we want to make one more test. So let's copy that and let's just duplicate it, and we'll call this just to give it something short. We'll do test message again. Okay, so this time let's go ahead and change this to Mel, and let's do Mel. What's a good last name? Johnson. There we go. Okay, so so basically for this test, that's all one group, but for this test, it's something else. So again, first name is going to be Mel, last name is going to be Johnson, the button's going to be clicked, and then the message should say hello, and then it should say Mel. Okay, so let's go ahead and save it. I'm going to go back to Android test. I'm going to right click and go to run test. Then this should run all our tests really quickly. And this video is getting kind of long. So good, that one, see, that one turned green, that's green. It's still working on that. Oh, it's red, that one's red. So first message, so everything was green, so everything worked except for the first message. So what's going on there? It has to do, And by the way, this is the beauty of test-driven development. Like we can know, hey, first name or last name's good, first name's good, that's good, that's good. What isn't good is the first message right here. Double click on it and it takes you right to it. So this test, something is wrong. So let's just look at the error here. So it says, so the text should be welcome Mel Johnson, but the text was really, if I can find it here, what was the text? Yeah, the text was really welcome Jake Smith. So this is a bug. This is a bug we need to fix. So we got two different things. Let's go to main activity, and I actually know what we need to do here. Let's do $first name dot text, and then here we'll do last name dot text, and this should fix it. So whatever it'll be welcome, a comma, and then whatever our first name is, and then whatever our last name is. I'm pretty confident this is going to work. So let's do this. Do right click on Android test and go to run test, and then go back to the emulator, and it does it really fast, but you can kind of see as it types in Malone, it opens up, it does that. All our tests are green so far, green and green. Okay, they're all green, so good. We can know in about 5 or 10 seconds that all of our app, so all of these tests are working and everything is working just fine. So what is the beauty of test-driven development? So say you're changing something in main and content main, and instead of calling it first name, you just call it middle name. Well, this thing will blow up and give you an error. So actually that will probably give you compile time error. But like the beauty of this is you can actually know in like a couple of seconds whether or not all of this stuff works. So instead of having to click on the button there and run your app as you probably usually do, this is the way you're probably used to testing, and you might do, let's do Nathan, what's a good last name? I'm having trouble with last names. Smith. We'll just do Nathan Smith. Hit submit. Yeah, we can do it that way. Or say maybe you don't have 2 fields. Maybe you have 10 fields or 20 edit text. Maybe you have 2 screens, or maybe you have 30 screens. You can run tests on all of these. You can have hundreds of these tests. You can have tons of these tests that can run in a matter of seconds and let you know whether or not your app is functional or not. So we kind of see, hey, we're gonna type something in first name, we're gonna type something in last name, we're gonna hit a button, we're going to see a message, and the message should be welcome Mel Johnson, because that's kind of what we entered in there. So hopefully you learned something, and I'll try, if there's enough interest, leave a comment or something, and I'll try to make another one. This has been I've kind of been all over the place today. I know it's like, we're at 27 minutes now, and this is kind of a long video. So thanks for sticking around. If you want more, let me know. I'll try to make it more clear in another video. If you thought this was boring, let me know, and I'll try to make it less boring next time. But anyways, hopefully you learned something about test-driven development, where you can write your tests and then run them by running it that way, and you can tell in a couple of seconds whether your app's functional or not. In this case, it wasn't critical, because we can always go back to the emulator and I can type out something, there, and I can make sure it works. But if your app is a lot more complex, it can be really nice to have these kind of tests. So hopefully you'll learn something, and I'll see you in the next video.